Glitches are unintentional malfunctions in a game, things that aren't meant to be seen by the player when exploring a digital world. In some instances, they are quite troublesome, impeding the progress of the gamers who encounter them. In others, they can become sought after, repeatable actions that are actually fun to perform. Sometimes these bugs are incredibly charming, or add an extra layer of skill-based mechanics to an already addictive gameplay loop. These accidental abnormalities in a game's code can be so popular that they become integral pillars of the experience. Things that people look back on fondly whenever recalling a given title. For example, one of the first things I think of when I recall Oblivion isn't an environment or a quest line, as wonderful as those things are. Instead, my mind goes to one of the most simple objects you can imagine. A paintbrush. If you collect one, then drop it out of your inventory, it floats in the air and possesses collision. With enough of them, ridiculous staircases can be created, allowing you to jump way beyond the boundaries of a specific location. It's the dumbest thing ever, but I also love it. The right glitch is remembered more than an intended mechanic, and at times is even more iconic. These strange mistakes are one of the many reasons I love Halo so much, and I more often than not go out of my way to trigger them whenever I play. So today I wanted to talk about some of my favorite Halo glitches. Some of the dumb shit that makes me just as nostalgic as something that was supposed to be in the game. Now bear in mind, this is not intended to be an exhaustive list, nor a tutorial with step-by-step instructions, though I suppose you could follow along if you want to. These are just some highlights and some stuff that I in particular remember the most strongly. If I didn't cover something that you love, let me know in the comments. I'm also going to try and keep out of bounds glitches to a minimum because I think I'd like to do a video specifically about those in the future. Alright, let's get into it. The very first mission in the entire series has one of the most easy to perform glitches that has become a staple to many players whenever they replay the game. In order to perform it, simply run as quickly as you can away from Captain Keyes after he hands you the Magnum. If done correctly, you can completely skip the trigger that spawns the first wave of grunts and the sidearm into your hand. By proceeding forward and acquiring a couple of weapons of your choosing, then backtracking to actually spawn in the Magnum, you can hold 3 weapons instead of the standard 2. Once you get to the area where a group of grunts are guarding a bunch of empty drop pod anchor points, there's a super easy trick jump you can do to get out into space. Simply run, jump, and crouch with just the right timing to slide through the small upper portion of this door. For whatever reason, the top quadrant of glass has no collision, allowing you to slip right through and into space. To be honest, there's not a whole lot going on out here, but I was weirdly fascinated with this glitch when I was a kid, and it's still something I do every once in a while, for some reason. Space, I guess. I don't know. This is another glitch I did constantly for some reason, despite the fact that it doesn't really yield any interesting results. With enough momentum and a little bit of elbow grease, you can drive a Warthog straight up this hill right by the Marine group in a Forerunner structure. All it grants you is an interesting vantage point of the nearby terrain. This isn't the only spot you can do this either. It works on pretty much any slanted surface. Bungie was seemingly aware of it too because they placed a trigger area in the first section of the mission that completely immobilizes you when you pass through it. It just disables all inputs. Belly skip isn't particularly nostalgic in general because it was discovered much more recently. Regardless, I still think it's a really cool glitch, largely thanks to the fact that I learned how to do it from my Halo CE legendary Zero Grunt kill run. Trust me when I say, it was extremely difficult. Go check out the video I made about the ordeal if you've never seen it. Performing this glitch is no easy task, as it requires a high amount of precision. I'll do my best to explain it, but before doing so, I'd like to thank Cambid for his wonderful tutorial, otherwise my legendary gruntless run would have never been made and this glitch would have remained outside of my skill set. Okay, so here's what you need to do. First off, you have to throw a bunch of grenades underneath the Wraith that's parked in the hangar of the Truth and Reconciliation. The amount needed will change depending on your difficulty. Once the explosives have detonated, you need to run over to the left wing of the vehicle and position yourself so that one of the jagged points of the tank is placed between 2 textures on the back wall. With that done, you're free to shoot the Wraith a few times with a weapon, preferably a plasma pistol, causing it to explode. If you're standing in the correct spot, destroying the craft will cause you to clip into it. Move forward until you can't anymore, then proceed to aim your plasma pistol reticle so that it perfectly aligns with a shape on this wall. Here's where the real precision begins. Tap back on your movement inputs. In this case, for me, I press the bottom arm of my controller's D-pad. For some reason, this will cause you to teleport inside the geometry of the Wraith. Now, tap left until you're wedged in the back right corner of the inside of the tank. From here, switch to the anniversary graphics if you can, and tap right for literally a 30th of a second so that you're perfectly within the seam of this texture. Next, point your weapon reticle, preferably a sniper, so that it's on the top point of this small diamond shape. Hold jump and tap backwards to teleport high into the air and out of bounds. In this instance, I'm using the Acrophobia Skull, a modifier that grants you the ability to fly. It isn't necessary to perform this glitch, but it makes this final portion a tiny bit easier. Normally, you'd have to maneuver yourself in midair as you fall to land on an extremely skinny walkway just below. If you're even remotely misaligned, you either fall into the void or back into the confines of the map. Thanks to the skull though, I can freely explore the outside of the play space now. Funnily enough, if you fly straight up with anniversary graphics on, you'll eventually find the previous section of the map. It no longer has collision at this point though. I just think it's interesting that the inner portions of the Truth and Reconciliation are physically beneath the first area of the level. Warthog launching on the Silent Cartographer may just be the most famous Halo glitch. It's pretty easy to perform too. All that you need to do is collect a large pile of grenades right by the overshield on the beach, drive a Warthog so that it's parked on the explosives, throw a grenade at the others, grab the overshield, and quickly board the vehicle. In case you didn't know, during the period where an overshield is acquired to the moment it's fully charged up, you're completely invincible, thus allowing you to survive the otherwise extremely deadly detonation. The force of all of the grenades exploding will launch your Warthog to ridiculous heights. Door skip is a very famous speedrun strategy for the Silent Cartographer. If you drive a Warthog into the room where the entryway locks you out, you can use the vehicle's momentum to fling yourself through the portal just before it closes. This allows you to not only interact with a friendly gold elite, but it also skips a huge portion of the mission. Once inside and past the Sangheili, you can literally jump straight down to the bottom platform by landing just right against this slanted surface. If you continue a little bit further forward, you can fall down even more from here to land on an overshield below, once again negating all fall damage and allowing you to skip the entire descent portion of the mission. As soon as you gain control of the Master Chief during assault on the control room, you're ejected from a pelican. By holding the board vehicle button the moment you're kicked out, you can climb right back in. This allows you to ride the troop transport all the way to the bottom of this gigantic pit. What's down here? Nothing. Nothing at all. Bridge skip is another famous speedrun glitch that has since been phased out in favor of stealing a nearby banshee. I still like this particular strategy though, because successfully doing it was a pretty big aha moment for me in terms of what I thought I was capable of. I was under the impression that glitches like this could only be accomplished by an elite few, and that it would be virtually impossible for someone like me to do it until I did it. In hindsight, it's not all that difficult. All you've got to do is jump off the first bridge and land on this small ledge just below. After that, run and fall forward, moving to the left just barely to land on the cliffside that surrounds the outside portions of this level. If done properly, you'll survive the fall. From here, simply follow the rocky surface until you reach this point. Once again, walk forward, this time making sure to hold back so that you slide along the edge of the mountain. If all three drops are done correctly, every single enemy from this point on will have despawned, allowing you to walk through the level completely unscathed. If you proceed all the way to the end of the mission, then pilot a ghost to the top of this large Forerunner structure, you can use it to phase through the control room door. By driving towards it sideways and exiting at just the right moment, you'll slip through and into the next room. All of the enemies in here are now friendly, because their AI doesn't seem to be activated until the switch that operates the door is interacted with. I'm not sure why, but I just loved this glitch as a kid and I did it all the time. Much like Assault on the Control Room, the beginning of 343 Guilty Spark starts as you're ejected from a Pelican. If you throw a grenade right before you get booted out, this will cancel the exit animation and allow you to stay inside the aircraft. Instead of flying out of sight and despawning like you would probably expect, it flies up and out of the map, then parks on the ground. Once you land, you're free to hop out and explore the out-of-bounds portions of the space. There's not really anything interesting up here, aside from this random Marine. I have no idea why he's up here. This is yet another speedrun glitch that's been mostly phased out in favor of a slightly easier strategy that utilizes a flood form to clip through a nearby wall. This particular bug is interesting though, because it allows you to get out of bounds in a way that's comparable to the belly skip on the level The Truth and Reconciliation. To do it, you need to disable the deployable cover in the beginning of the mission. Stand on top of it and line yourself up pixel perfect so that when it reappears, it teleports you out of the map for some reason. Once you're out of the map, you can go straight to keys and skip the entire outside section of the level. All of the enemies in this area behave really strangely too. They sort of T-pose and in general just don't really react to anything until they're killed. Though this glitch is very new, I feel like it would be an absolute crime to exclude it from this video because it's hilarious and utterly incredible. I believe this bug was originally discovered by MisterMonopoli, a longtime Halo speedrunner, so big thanks to him. It allows you to play as any entity in the game. Grunts, vehicles, flood forms, Sergeant Johnson, you name it. It's referred to as AUP, or Arbitrary Unit Possession. To keep things brief, I'm only going to discuss a couple of the easiest AUP glitches. In this instance, one that allows you to play as a grunt on the mission outskirts. If you want to know more about how this works or what other things you can play as, I encourage you to do your own research and look at MisterMonopoli's YouTube channel. Okay, so in order to perform this, all you have to do is start outskirts on co-op, kill the player who will be playing as the grunt, run over to the inside of the crashed pelican, and crouch in the back corner. This is what is referred to as a pinch, which is essentially standing in a location that's too small for your co-op partner to spawn in. You'll know it's been done correctly when the dead player's screen doesn't say something like teammate in combat or whatever. If your partner doesn't spawn in, simply restart the level. After it resets, stick and kill the player you quote-unquote pinched. Immediately start meleeing to trick the game into thinking you're in combat, delaying your partner's respawn. Approach the doorway that leads towards the big open courtyard, and as soon as you pass through, stop meleeing, and your buddy should respawn as a grunt. Here's what it looks like to actually be an Ungoy as well. I just love this glitch. It's crazy that such a thing was only recently discovered in a game that's over 20 years old. Getting out of bounds on outskirts is basically the only way I and many others play this mission. It's so unbelievably easy to do. All that's required is to leap onto this light fixture, then crouch jump to get on the rooftop. I suppose it's debatable whether or not this is actually a glitch, considering there's 3 separate Easter eggs up here, such as the blind skull, for example. Once you're up here, there's basically no barrier stopping you from exploring any of the upper portions of these buildings. With a few grenades and the know-how, you can travel around pretty freely. That's not even the only way you can just hop out of bounds either. In the first area with enemies, there's a small alleyway that leads towards another smaller courtyard. From here, you can easily stand atop this pile of trash, crouch jump up to the nearby ledge, then leap straight to the top of the closest building, once again taking you out of bounds. There are even more ways to easily get outside of the map too, but I think you get the idea. If you proceed through Metropolis as normal until you reach the building right before the scarab destroys the tank, a few pelicans will fly in once the nearby enemies are killed. For some reason, you can easily board one by simply parking a warthog or a wraith below, then using it to give yourself some extra height to jump straight in. Once boarded, it will fly you far outside of the confines of the map, and instead of despawning, it'll just flip over. It becomes super wonky at this point and flips all over the place. You're prompted to flip banshee when you get close, but doing so just causes it to spaz out even more. If you manage to drive a vehicle all the way through the tight corridors right before boarding the scarab, you can encounter a really bizarre glitch. Simply pilot your warthog, ghost, or whatever onto the Covenant walker and watch what happens. They stick to the top and float above the walkway. I have no idea why this happens, but it does. As soon as the Arbiter starts, turn around and watch the phantoms that brought you here. They eventually just fall out of the sky and land down below. If you were to turn on Acrophobia and fly down there, you'd see that they have the same weird behavior as the Pelican from the previous glitch. I was so amused by this when I first found it all those years ago. I really don't know why Bungie didn't just despawn them instead, but I'm kind of glad they didn't because these weird little quirks are part of the reason why I love Halo 2 so much. The Oracle is a boring mission, potentially the worst in all of Halo 2, but it does contain a really cool glitch, and it's super easy to pull off. Activate the elevator that leads to the cables holding the station, but from the back of the panel. As soon as it rises, press the switch again, then run underneath it. Don't worry, it won't crush you. Instead, it'll launch you all the way to the top of the shaft. At this point, you're completely and so long as you don't get launched off of the platform by an annoying enemy, you can take this invulnerability through the rest of the mission. Once all of the cables have been cut, quickly make your way to the elevator shaft. Right as the station is about to enter freefall, jump down the tube. If timed properly, the next portion of the level should load in, allowing you to pass through without any real consequence. Now, simply enjoy your godlike abilities and trivialized boss fight against Seisa Reifumi. Poor bastard. I know I said I was going to keep out-of-bounds glitches to a minimum, but I can't not talk about this one because I distinctly remember discovering this completely by accident while just screwing around in Halo 2. All you have to do is grab a tank or a ghost and drive it up this small ledge, followed by this much larger one just beyond it. Just like that, you're out of bounds. This map is utterly massive too. For the most part, anything you can see, you can travel to. One more AUP glitch because much like being a grunt, it's super easy. It's pretty much the exact same setup too. Kill the player who will be taking control of the new entity. Stand in this spot in the tunnel just behind spawn to perform a pinch. Then restart the mission. As it loads, kill the person who is pinched, board a vehicle to trigger the enemies up ahead to spawn, and voila, your buddy is now an Enforcer Sentinel. Here's what it looks like to be the construct. Interestingly, all of the mechanics Enforcers have are usable to you, including the vehicle smash, where the two legs are slammed together. In order to pull this glitch off, you first need to secure yourself a Spectre. I went ahead and drove the first one you encounter off the cliff to be used later, but any of the others will also work. Proceed through the mission as normal until Johnson boards the Scarab. This is your cue to go find the Spectre that you stashed away from earlier, or just go steal one from the brutes. Using the vehicle, drive your way into the water, eventually cutting right to boost up this small peninsula. Hover all the way around and onto the central structure, making sure to carefully maneuver the Spectre up this slant instead of off the edge. Use the angled surface as a ramp to propel onto this ledge and then down to the light below. Now, wait here until Johnson blasts the door open and the little title thingy, Delusions of Grandeur, pops up in the bottom right corner. As soon as it does, hop out of the Spectre and watch as it slides off the edge. As soon as the nose of the transport has nothing below it, fall down alongside it. If done properly, this will teleport you and the vehicle into the boss room with Tartarus. If your timing is off, the Spectre will either not be there or it'll be wedged in the geometry, which is no good. You need it. With the Covenant craft in the arena, simply drive it over to Johnson and wait for him to get in. As soon as he does, a timer will start, and at the end, another Johnson will spawn. Rinse and repeat until the Spectre is full of Johnsons for a total of 4. The reason this happens is because the game knows you need Johnson to complete the mission, and for whatever reason, if he's riding the Spectre, it thinks he's gone, so it simply spawns a new one. The dead but alive glitch has been around for a very long time, but the reproduction steps weren't exactly clear until recently. Thanks to DrBizz, you can do it 100% of the time now. For a much clearer explanation of how this works, go check out his video on the subject. For this example, I'm doing the glitch on Uprising, simply because it's really easy to do. All that's needed is to kill your co-op partner, then do a pinch in this small hallway. This will create an empty, invisible biped on the map. From what I understand, it would become the second player if you allowed them to spawn. We won't do that though. Instead, we'll melee repetitively to trick the game into thinking we're in combat, then make our way over to where the temp player spawns. It's a different location on each map. You can see it thanks to the blue plasma rifle effect. Now, simply kill this entity through indirect means. In this case, I pushed it off the map. Once it's dead, allow your partner to respawn, and when they do, there'll be a corpse that can look around and stuff. Here's what it looks like to be the body. Sword flying is another one of those glitches that completely transcended and became an iconic aspect of Halo 2 itself. Originally, it wasn't possible to do in the Master Chief Collection, but it's such a beloved glitch that it was re-added into campaign when they started fixing it back in 2018. It used to work in multiplayer, but no longer does within the Master Chief Collection. I suppose having it exclusive to PvE is a fair compromise. If it weren't for YellowHat, I wouldn't have even been able to pull this off, so big thanks to him. Check out his video explaining how it works in more detail if you want to do this yourself. I knew about this glitch back in the OG Halo 2 days, but I was never able to consistently pull it off until now. To do it, all you need is an energy sword and a weapon that has a long-range reticle. What I mean by that is, the HUD element needs to be red for this to work, so things like snipers or rockets will be best. Starting with your ranged weapon, you want to very quickly press your swap weapon button, instantly followed by reload, then fire. If done properly, this happens. One of the interesting things about Halo 2 is that it shares a really weird commonality with fighting games. They both have button combos. Granted, the ones present in Halo weren't intentional, but they still became an integral part of performing well, especially in multiplayer. The most famous of these is referred to as BXR, named after the sequence of buttons that needed to be pressed on the original Xbox controller layout. Basically, you need to melee, reload, then shoot. This will allow you to smack somebody and then instantly fire your weapon after. By pressing reload in the middle, even if your weapon has a full clip, you can cancel the rest of the melee animation and move straight to shooting. If done properly, this combo can be extremely deadly. BXB is similar. This sequence allows you to melee twice instantaneously. All you've got to do is punch, reload, then punch again. Pressing the reload button also allows you to cancel any damage you might do. This is best paired with an energy sword to create lunges like this. To do this, I'm pressing reload and fire at basically the exact same time. Using the power of a rocket launcher and the help of an overturned banshee, you can launch yourself to ridiculous heights. Simply stand on one wing of the aircraft, fire a rocket at the other, and enjoy your flight. The same can be done utilizing barricades as well. If you jump in place over and over again, you eventually freeze in mid-air. I have no idea why. You can't even get knocked down by being shot, either. Man, I love Halo 2. Aside from the Warthog launch on the Silent Cartographer, super bouncing might be one of Halo's most famous glitches. There are literally hundreds of different bounces spread across both campaign and multiplayer maps, but I couldn't get any of them to work in the Master Chief Collection. Normally, all you'd need to do is find a place to crouch that's too small to stand upright, then jump onto a specific spot. So long as you land on a scene within the map's geometry, you'll go flying. At least that's what's supposed to happen. Allegedly, it's still possible to do this glitch in the Master Chief Collection, but you'll have to fall from a much greater height to pull it off. I say allegedly because I was unable to really get any of the bounces I remember to work. They weren't patched out of the game when Halo 2 was given the anniversary treatment and added to the Master Chief Collection or anything like that. They don't work anymore because of the game's increased internal clock, or tick rate. Originally, this was set to 30 to match the 30 frames per second that the game ran at. When it was updated, it was changed to 60, which had the unfortunate side effect to prevent the old glitch from working anymore. If you're on PC, however, SheoVT has you covered. Go check out his video and the accompanying mod that helps you to re-enable this iconic bug. With the modification activated, the game is running at its original 30 frames per second, allowing you to pull off this iconic glitch once more. Let me show you a few of my favorites. This is my favorite one on Headlong. Here's another good one on Zanzibar. Ascension has one that launches you super high. I tried over and over to do one of my favorites on lockout, but for whatever reason it wouldn't work, even with the 30 tick rate modification active. Back in the day, this became an integral aspect of performing well in multiplayer too. I distinctly remember a bunch of assholes stealing my flag on the map Warlock, then launching themselves way out of the map with it just to taunt me. It was completely broken, but also somewhat tricky to pull off, so it created an unintentional skill gap for competitive players to leverage over others. Honestly, it may have been a bit unfair from time to time, but I only remember it fondly. Shout out to Muffin Productions 111 for their video from 16 years ago, reminding me how to do this super bounce. If you're still out there, thanks, pal. This can technically be done on any map that has at least 2 tanks, but I'd recommend doing it in multiplayer if you're interested in trying for yourself, simply because it's way easier to set up. For this video, I did it on coagulation because it's really simple. But before I get into it, I wanted to thank CMNeir for all of his videos about obscure Halo glitches. Go check out his channel if you want to see everything he's gone over. There's a lot. And I utilized his videos to recall some of the more strange setups needed to do a bunch of the upcoming glitches. The first thing you need to do is flip a Scorpion over, which is easiest to do using this ledge. Now, drive an additional tank onto the overturned one so that the treads are lined up. Once you're in position, have a buddy flip the tank to launch you at ridiculous speeds. Oh, by the way, it's best to enable indestructible vehicles before doing this for obvious reasons. The only thing you need to do to create a ring of nearly infinite spinning rockets is acquire a spanker and a pal in a vehicle. Have said pal park in a large open space that's fairly elevated. The hills of coagulation are particularly well suited for this. As soon as your friend is parked, aim your rocket at them, lock on, flick your head to the side, and fire. If done right, the rocket will try to track your partner, but instead it will spin around, never quite making its way to its intended target. Rinse and repeat for maximum chaos. This glitch is neither iconic nor memorable, but I'm including it because it's extremely stupid and I was weirdly amused by it when I was a kid. Have a friend crouch and walk against this shield door-like surface. Now smack them in the back to wedge their head through the thin wall and cause their necks to stretch out. Yep, I just wasted your time showing you this. You're welcome. If you give yourself a little bit of damage resistance, then have another person ram into you with a banshee while standing on the edge of the map, you can fly beyond the death barrier at the bottom of the play space and land below. There's not much going on down here, but holy shit is this place massive. With some overshields, some damage resistance, a wraith, and a pal, you can launch yourself to new heights on Headlong. Step 1, stand here. Step 2, wait for your buddy to smash you with a wraith. Step 3, whee! Getting outside of Ivory Tower is a little trickier because it requires 2 people and a bit of finagling. Have one player stand in this corner within the glass walkway. Now the other person needs to hold crouch, use the sword cancel glitch that I described earlier, which is pressing reload and fire at the same time, then walk forward. This will cause your body to slip through the geometry and fall way down to the bottom. Back in the day, I remember doing this bizarre glitch by smashing people through this pillar using a wraith, but I couldn't get that to work in the Master Chief collection. Maybe it's another tick rate thing, I don't know. Thankfully, I learned an alternative way to do this from one of CMNeir's videos, so another big thanks to him. Using the Sputnik and Feather Skulls, modifiers that reduce the weight of objects and players, you can launch yourself high into the sky. Crouch as soon as you hit the ground and start walking towards this piece of debris. It takes a few tries, but eventually you'll walk right through and fall beneath the map. So long as your respawn time isn't set to instant, your corpse will hit a sphere hidden under the world. As soon as the body lands on it, it will be projected into the sky, but much, much larger than it's actually supposed to be. This also works with weapons or objective items like skulls or flags. I confess, the Stairway to Heaven is an overly fancy name for getting out of bounds on burial mounds. I promise it will live up to its name though, just watch. The first thing you need to do is get on top of this rock. At least that's how it was done in the original version of the game. I was having more success flinging myself from the ground all the way up without the rock for some reason. Either way, jump down and land directly on the same polygon I do. Without stopping, walk all the way to the end of the floor, then pass right through an invisible wall here. Now that you're out of bounds, make your way to the left side of the pizza cutter and simply walk towards the intended play space portion of the map. You'll slowly rise up on an invisible hill, the Stairway to Heaven. There are only a few out of bounds glitches left. I know I said I was keeping them to a minimum, but these are just too nostalgic for me to ignore. I would spend hours trying to break Halo 2 back on the original Xbox, so this all holds a special place in my heart. Oh shit. Anyways, in order to do this, you'll need a friend and an energy sword. You're going to have your buddy stand on this ledge above you, then use the sword cancel glitch to fling yourself up. If you do it just right, you'll slide right through a small hole in the invisible wall that covers the ceiling of most of the map. I was having a stupid hard time doing it for some reason, so I eventually decided to just be lazy and use a grenade aided by Feather and Sputnik. It can be done without though, I swear. Once you're out here, you can explore the city completely freely. Side note, I have a weird and distinct memory of playing on this map in a modded lobby back on the original Xbox. Somehow they had made it so buses would spawn at the top of this hill and roll downwards. The only objective was to try and dodge them before they crushed you. Basically proto-speed Halo, if you've ever played that in custom games. I was obsessed with these types of modded lobbies when I was a kid and was always trying to get into them just to play these bizarre and wacky game modes, but they were surprisingly difficult to come by. There was no custom games browser or anything like that. You had to just get really lucky. Glitching your way out of bounds on containment is ridiculously easy. All you need is a Spectre and a plucky attitude. Drive your vehicle to this side of the map and boost your way up this cliff. The trick is to hold the jump button in order to lift the nose of the Spectre up, then using its overpowered speed, slide all the way to the top. I couldn't tell you why, but if you do this, you'll phase right through the invisible wall that is supposed to prevent you from getting up here. After that, you're free to walk around pretty much anywhere. Much like Terminal, I was occasionally lucky enough to get into modded lobbies on this map with weird properties. The one I encountered the most were racetracks built way outside of the map. I don't know what objects they used to do it, but I remember thinking it was really neat. Getting out of Gemini is a multi-step process, and therefore a little bit more difficult than containment. The first is to go outside onto the ledge overlooking the rest of High Charity. Next is to use a friend to help you sword cancel launch to the top of the structure that houses the outdoor portal. Your friend will then need to lunge up with you. In this instance, my wife was helping me, despite how annoyed she was getting, so thanks, Riley. Once you're both up here, one of you needs to jump, while the other performs another sword cancel on the jumper. This should fling you up and onto the roof just beyond. You're technically out of the map at this point, but you can take it one step further by launching your way up this wall. It can be done without Feather or Sputnik, but my wife was getting irritated every time we failed, so I used a grenade to jump up and ease her suffering. The last and clearly most impressive glitch I want to discuss in Halo 2 is getting out of bounds on Colossus. Using a sword lunge setup similar to the one I mentioned in Ivory Tower, you can phase right through the glass and out into the void. Just kidding, it's actually only a tiny pocket that's just barely big enough for you to crouch within. Exciting, right? If you can find yourself a corner where two walls meet that goes straight up at a 90-degree angle, you can perform the butterfly glitch. Simply have a friend stand on your head, continuously walk into a corner and spam jump. This will cause you both to float upwards. Supposedly you can do this glitch by yourself, but I wasn't able to get it to work until I enlisted help from my friend Dominic. Thank you, Maibishi. Literally all you need to do is climb inside a dumpster with a pal, then both of you start spamming jump. This will cause the garbage can to lift off the ground and fly away. Oh my god, look! It's a bird! No, wait, it's a plane! No, it's Master Chief and Orbiter in a dumpster! There are actually several quote-unquote time travel glitches throughout Halo 3. I would argue that the one on the Covenant is the most famous and well-known though, so that's the one I'm talking about in this video. There isn't technically any wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff going on. What's really happening is we're tricking the game into loading sections of the map out of sequence. Oh shit. To easily do this on the Covenant, first grab a ghost and accelerate up this hill like a ramp. Once up here, simply jump onto the next slanted surface, then leap once more up to the following structure. Walk along it until an invisible wall pushes you off and onto an invisible floor. Slowly make your way to the cliff edge, then follow it up to where the ground is no longer textured. You'll eventually hit a load zone and spawn in the later portion of the level. Since you're here before you're supposed to be, there are no enemies and you can freely walk around without any real consequences. This next glitch was something I distinctly remember doing back in the day with my buddy Dominic, and for some reason we were obsessed with it. It feels like an Easter egg because the steps are a little involved and the result is super weird, but it's technically a bug. Before I get into it, I want to thank Generalkidd for his video on how to do this. Go check it out if you want some slightly clearer instructions because I'm going to move kind of quickly here. First off, perform the time travel glitch I just explained in the previous segment, this time ensuring a second player stays just behind on the cliff face before the load zone trigger. Now, walk all the way around the back of the first tower until you get to the second. Have one person stay here at tower number 2 and start heading towards number 3. Upon arriving at the final structure, fall down and trigger a load zone. Kill yourself after to respawn back up top, or if you're lazy like me, just fly up with the acrophobia skull. At this point, the towers will have spawned. What's happening here is we've essentially respawned the 3 towers from the previous section of the mission. Narratively, they're supposed to be the same buildings the entire time, but they don't actually line up correctly in the 3D space of the map. So when Bungie was designing this level, they created 2 sets of identical towers, one for the first area and one for the second. By hitting that load zone, we've tricked the game into spawning both sets at the same time. For some reason, this glitches the inner parts of the first set of towers, defaulting them to this bizarre texture instead. This is the default invalid texture for Blam, the engine Bungie used to create Halo. If you trigger the time travel glitch again, you can see these towers a bit better by loading in the first portion of the mission. From here, you can more easily interact with them, though it's worth noting that they don't have any collision. I just love this glitch for some reason. Something about it is so quintessential Halo. You know what I mean? I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. Have you ever wanted to drive a destroyed Banshee? No? Well, too bad, because that's what we're doing right now. This glitch can technically be accomplished in campaign, I think, but it would be pretty tricky. It's easiest to do this in Forge with a friend. All you need to do is board a vehicle, and as you're going through the animation, have it get destroyed. It's simplest to do with a Banshee on sand trap by having the person who's getting hijacked boost into a wall like so. So long as it breaks before the animation finishes, you'll climb onto the vehicle's remains and just sort of hang out. This is one of those glitches that's dumb looking and doesn't really serve any purpose, but I do love when this happens in matchmaking and everyone gets confused. Shout out to ultimatesocks video from 14 years ago that reminded me how to do this. If you're still out there, I appreciate it, buddy. Old shitty quality videos like this recorded by kids are just so funny to me. It was a different time. This next bug is once again courtesy of CMNeir. This is the part where I encourage you to go check out his channel again. It's overloaded with nostalgic stuff and dumb glitches. Okay, so first off, you need to spawn a vehicle. It doesn't matter what kind, but in this instance, I used a Gosshog because they're my favorite. Make sure its respawn time is 10 seconds, then drive it away from where you spawned it. Place another Gosshog and set its respawn time to 180 seconds. Now, blow both of them up and wait for one to reappear. Once it does, hop in and move it away. Change the respawn time to 180 seconds. Open up the runtime minimum menu and max it out. Destroy it once more. After it comes back, get in again and drive away. As soon as the other vehicle spawns back in, have a buddy grab it in Forge. This will disable the gravity of the one you're currently driving. Yes, the setup is kind of complicated and confusing, so if you want clearer instructions, go check out CMNeir's video on the subject. Seriously. One of my favorite glitches in Halo 3 can be performed by picking up a weapon with your hands at the exact same time as a friend grabs it in Forge. Getting the timing right is tricky, but doing so makes this happen. Spamming the fire button in monitor mode will cause your pal's arms to flail about until they get ripped off completely. If you do this with a gravity hammer, the physics of the swings start to get really funky too. Did you know that you can glitch into basically any area using nothing but a mounted turret? Simply place one of the guns up against the wall you want to phase through, get on it, look straight up so you're crouched down, then turn into a monitor. You can use this on literally any map to get into all kinds of weird spaces. I remember trying to find rooms like this so that I could create arenas for a game mode that my dad made called Fight Club. Everyone spawned in a small area with no shields and plasma pistols. The only objective was to beat the hell out of each other. It was super fun. We even made a machinima style video about it called Halo 3 Fight Club with custom music. It's a little cheesy these days, but I still go back and watch it sometimes. Anyways, here are a few examples of places you can get into using this glitch. This one's on Rat's Nest. And here's another on Cold Storage. The final example is on The Pit. Another one of my favorite Halo 3 glitches is overloading the maps in Forge. To do this, spawn the maximum number of trip mines possible, then set their runtime minimum to the highest value. Stand on your pile of explosives and begin throwing them in front of you. After a while, you'll have built up an absolutely massive pile, and as soon as they detonate, the map will be overloaded. By placing too many pieces of equipment for the game to handle, certain parts of a given space will no longer function. For example, the mines on the outer portions of Sandtrap become disabled. Gravity or airlifts stop working too. This works on literally any map. Here's another example on Sandbox. The towers that kill you will be completely turned off. One more instance on Snowbound. I'm sure you can probably guess by now that overloading this map disables the turrets. Starting any campaign level in theater mode, pausing it, rewinding the recording to the very beginning, then entering free cam mode places you in the middle of nowhere with no barriers or restrictions. Everything is frozen in place, but you can easily explore tons of weird stuff. For example, this used to be the only way to look at the bizarre untextured Master Chief statue way outside of the map on Lone Wolf. The first mission of Halo Reach has a scripted encounter with a skirmisher that occurs once you enter the first building. In order to keep the enemy spawned in but not visible to the player, it stays in a shrunken down state. Getting to and seeing this is already sort of a glitch, but the size is technically an intended feature. To reach this little guy, you'll need to do a bit of parkour. A sprint jump will easily get you up this rock, then a second one will bring you even higher. From here, jump onto this ledge. It's a bit trickier than it looks because there's an invisible wall that will push you downwards. I screwed up a few times, but I had acrophobia on, so it didn't really matter. Next, fall onto this small ledge and jump onto the roof from here. You'll float above it on a weird, slippery, invisible floor. I went too far the first time, as you can see here, triggering him to grow and run away. If you're lazy like me, you can just fly up here instead of doing any of those leaps of faith. The real wonkiness begins when you kill the Kigyar and its limbs hyperextend to horrific lengths. Ugh. It kind of reminds me of those toys that are poles with animals on the top and triggers at the bottom that open and close their mouths when squeezed. Do you know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about. Also, you can assassinate it, which looks ridiculous. It's actually possible to steal one of the falcons on Winter Contingency. This was a glitch I remember doing back on the original Xbox 360 version of Reach, but the reproduction steps escaped me throughout the years. Thankfully, Vodred has a great video explaining exactly how this works, so go check it out if you want better instructions. To start, run all the way to the back of the first area with enemies. If the falcon is flying towards the left, move further down the hill towards the spades. This seems to send the aircraft on a scripted path that will be useful to you. Grab a plasma pistol, make your way to the first set of buildings and run up this mountain. Now all you need to do is overcharge your newly acquired weapon and fire it at the falcon. The trick is to do it in such a way that when it falls, it flips over and boots the driver out. With that done, all that's left is to flip it over, hop in, and enjoy your new ride. You can use it to break out of the map as well, but I'll leave that for Vodred to explain. Another one of my favorite out-of-bounds glitches is on tip of the spear. It's also super easy to do. All that you need is to steal a banshee, fly it over to this cliff, and flip to the right. If you get out at the furthest point of your roll, you'll skip past the invisible wall that pushes you into the map and will be completely free to explore. If memory serves, you can get the banshee out here with you too to fly around if acrophobia feels too cheaty or something, but as I've said many times before, I'm lazy, so I'm just gonna fly out of here. The reason this is one of my favorite map breaks is because the explorable area is utterly massive, and there's a lot of weird stuff you can find out here. For example, the frigates actually have collision. I also love looking at the low poly vehicles far beyond because they look ridiculous. Just look at this goofy ass thing. Long Night of Solace contains one of my all-time favorite Halo glitches, but it's really difficult to pull off without acrophobia or bandana, the skull that gives you infinite ammo and armor abilities. Starting from the beginning of the mission, make your way to the armor lock. You'll need it to break out of bounds. In the original version of the game, I remember using this pelican to pull this off. Simply stand on it, and as soon as it flies away, activate armor lock. For some reason, this doesn't seem to work in the Master Chief Collection though. Instead, you'll need to perform the exact same operation on the spirit that drops off a wraith. By activating armor lock, you become rooted to the vehicle, and the invisible wall that it flies through can no longer push you away. Instead, you just slip right through it. Now comes the tricky part. You're going to need to overcharge a plasma pistol and release the projectile perfectly in time with one of the Seraph's strafing runs. Getting this right used to be very difficult, but thanks to acrophobia, I just flew up into one of their scripted paths and fired straight towards it. This will disable the aircraft and cause it to fall down somewhere onto the map. All that's left to do is locate it and hop in. I have no idea why Bungie decided to make these pilotable, but I don't even care because this is just so cool to me. When this glitch happens, it's either the best feeling ever or the worst. Imagine you just cleverly snuck up behind the asshole that's been teabagging you throughout the entire match. You want him to suffer, to know he's been beaten and bested, so you don't just kill him with a simple backsmack. That's far too quick, far too merciful. Instead, you draw it out by performing an assassination so he can watch in horror as the inevitable event approaches. His demise. Suddenly, the animation stops prematurely and your adversary slips away. He feels like the luckiest man on Earth, but you feel like you've been cheated, and frankly, that's because you have. This is the only glitch in this entire video that actually kind of sucks. The only reason I'm including it is because it can be really exciting to get a new lease on life. Thinking you're screwed, only to pop back into your Spartan's shoes is an awesome feeling, even if the person on the other end got completely and totally ripped off. This bug only seems to occur on slanted surfaces and is something I've seen many times. For whatever reason, I was unable to replicate it for you here, but I do have an old clip from another video I've been working on where it happened to me. I'll include my genuine reaction too because it's kind of funny in hindsight. I was about to get a ball assassination medal, by the way, one of the least obtained awards in Halo multiplayer. Okay, here's the clip.
There it is.
Yes! No!
What?
Oh, what the fuck?
Oh, I should have gotten air assassination right there too.
Dude. Oh, what the fuck was that?
I let you have it too, dude. I was just like, oh, I knew it was right there lined up perfectly.
What was that robbery, dude? I just wanted
I
to
should have
have
had
it.
an air assassination too.
Most of the glitches that I remember fondly in Halo 4 are out of bounds related, but like I said before, I think I want to dedicate a later video to breaking out of every Halo map, so I'm only going to talk about my favorite of these bugs. Funnily enough, I made a few YouTube videos about a couple of these glitches 12 years ago. They were on a different channel called ChuckTheLittleAlien because I was afraid to post Halo content on my main channel, this one. I didn't know how Microsoft's fair use policy worked back then, so I put everything I had in a separate place in case any of the videos got hit with copyright claims and the whole account got nuked. I was a dumb kid, okay? This channel actually contains the first recorded discovery of the Sergeant Johnson Easter egg in Halo 4 as well, which sadly doesn't work in the Master Chief Collection for some reason. My buddy Dominic and I found this weird secret on accident, made a shitty video, and it got picked up by halo.bungie.org, which was a big deal back then. Maybe it's not even Johnson. I don't know. You can be the judge. I guess I'll link the old channel if you're interested. All of the old videos were filmed with a terrible camera aimed at a TV, and they're pretty cringy in general, so be warned. Anyways, as soon as you enter the glass walkway where you can see out into space, turn around and jump into the doorway. For some reason, it just doesn't have collision, allowing you to slip right into space. I believe you can go out here without acrophobia, but same as before, lazy. Just below the intended play space is Cortana for some reason. Beyond are a bunch of MAC guns that, bizarrely, can actually be piloted, despite the fact that no such vehicle like this exists anywhere in Halo 4. It must be a leftover asset from the gun towards the end of Reach or something. Holy crap, we finally made it to the end of this really long video. I thought this was gonna be just a short, quick and easy thing, and it's taken me like, God, I don't even know. Yesterday, I worked on this video from 8 in the morning to 11 at night. It's taking me too long. It's taking me too long. But we're here. We're done. We've made it. If you're here with me right now, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Second of all, I'd like to ask you to do just a couple more things for me, even though you already watched this entire video. Just a couple. I'd like you to like this video, please. I'd like you to like it. I'd like you to comment, maybe share this video with your friends or something, because that helps me a lot. Or you go watch another video of mine, because YouTube says that's good, and I also say that's good, so yeah, so can you go do that for me, please? Instead of standing here staring at me? Well, I'm standing here. You're probably sitting. You get the idea. Bye.